Good day, everybody. We're at the 17th of May, 2025. We're going to talk about the Santa Clarita real estate update. We're going to talk about some fat to fit stuff. As far as these weight loss drugs that are really coming down in price, a lot of people are using. I'm not sure if it's safe, so we'll talk a little bit about that and what my investigations, at least the way that I did it, and kind of maybe pass that on to you. And then finally, talking about artificial intelligence, where that's going in the future, and a conversation I seem to have very, very often, and just leaving people staring at me like I'm going to be that guy wearing that billboard that says the end of the world's coming with the bell ringing it in the street. All right, so let's start with real estate. 744 total active listings on the market as of today, May 17th, 2025. What does that mean? Our inventory has gone up over 150 units in the past 2 months. If you track back to the last market that was incredibly fast, we had half of the inventory we are seeing today. A couple reasons why the inventory is starting to build, of course, is the buyers are out there, but we're starting to see a little bit of an oversupply. Listings are still selling. We're watching those listings take an additional week or 2 weeks, depending on what city and the pricing strategy from where they were even a couple months ago. Also, getting into summer, that's really the hot time in real estate. Real estate buyers are out there. They're able to be a little bit more selective because of the extra inventory, but in some neighborhoods, depending on, of course, what neighborhood we're talking about, there hasn't been anything listed for sale for quite a while. So when that house does come up, the buyers do get excited and go out there and they pounce on that property, typically in relatively high numbers, so you get that multiple offer strategy. One of the things I was discussing with my clients, they're deciding whether to sell now, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, and realistically I don't see anything changing in that time frame. And of course, if I had a crystal ball, well, I would probably be doing different videos. But at this particular time, I don't see a lot changing. I do know the Fed is kicking back against the government, wanting them to lower the interest rate. However, we are seeing a lowering of the interest rate anyway because of the way the economy is. Inflation's coming down, and people are getting more confidence in that 10-year bond, which is what the interest rates are actually tied to. However, if the Fed does do a rate decrease, a point and a half, 2 points, it's going to definitely affect the mortgage rate as it typically does. And then we'll see buyers start to even increase their roll out there when it comes to purchasing real estate. One of the things a lot of sellers seem to be talking to when they're interviewing agents is agents telling them that they can basically give an advance credit to the real estate buyer so the buyer can buy down their interest rate. Not in big agreement with that, because if interest rates do come down, those buyers are actually going to refinance anyway. That pricing strategy, buyers know going in what your property's worth. They know what they're going to offer. And in fact, if their agent's doing their due diligence, they're searching the entire realm of real estate just in case there happens to be something out there where the valuation and that listing price is actually higher than the market. They will make the offer accordingly for their buyers. And a good agent would be searching in that realm anyway. Moving into the artificial intelligence world, before we get into the fat loss stuff, let's talk about some of the dystopian attitudes out there with regard to what's happening in the future. I know I'm smiling and being happy about it. It is one of the particular trajectories that people can't actually see, but people are talking about. We don't know where it's going to go with the advancement of this super intelligence. But if you look back at the different revolutions we have, the agricultural change in the world, we saw the other changes that had to do with the engineering and the automation where it came to machines. Gosh, it's just skipping my mind. Agricultural, industrial revolution. So we saw both of those, right? One of the guys, real smart people that do a lot of AI development, talked and said, you would have to show me how this happens to be different than those two. This is all about intelligence, all about automation. The other two, you were able to build a tractor like the loom. I know that that's something that's talked about, the things that make carpet. Before that, the loom and tapestries and these sorts of things. Before, it was kind of hand weaving, then they built a machine. Well, it takes time to build those machines. And people might say, well, it takes time to build robots and these automations. Not when you have a super intelligence that's being developed, refining itself, making itself better, and then it's able to, if human beings remove the regulations. So, for example, the fires we had in Southern California, those folks that live in those areas aren't able to go in and clean up those lots because they're being stopped, from what I understand, by the city because there could be toxic issues and other things. So the city thinks they know what's best for the people that live there, and I know that's a big pain point for a lot of the folks that just want to get in there, clear off the land, and rebuild as quick as they can if in fact they're financially able to do so. But the city is putting restrictions on that, i.e. regulations. So if you pull in a dump truck and a crew, they're going to get fined, and there's going to be issues where they're not going to be able to complete the task because of the regulation. There's an example. In addition, here's another example of regulation. You have some kind of a fish or an entity, an insect, something that the environmentalist, this would be an environmental holdback, states that if you go in and do these sorts of things, you might destroy it. So they're going to need studies, impact studies, to figure these things out. Now, I'm not in agreement we should go out and just, build whatever we want, but that regulation is something that if the powers that be see a lot of monetary benefit for themselves, their constituents, and other people, I bet you dollars to donuts, there's the cop in me, dollars to donuts, so the regulation would go away. So they will build probably these types of zones where if there are no robot manufacturer, drone manufacturer, whatever, it will start up and you will be able to go without having to do any kind of an impact study, immediately moving forward. That's where the speed and progression is going to take place, over and above where it did with the agricultural and industrial revolution. Also, both of those were contingent on a little bit of intelligence. They had the intelligence to get into that realm and start to develop the particular technology at the time. Now we're talking about a super intelligence that just can build technology as soon as it figures it out. And if it's self-learning, self-taught, we're going to see that technology skyrocket. And it is something, when you watch the experts online, it is something that they can't wrap their mind around as to what's going to happen next. And looking for me for that advice, I have no idea either. But it is a very incredible, the speed is going to take everybody by surprise. And again, I feel like that guy that's wearing those billboards and all those end of the world movies, screaming and shaking the bell, hey, watch out, the end is coming soon. Hopefully that's not going to be the case, and it's going to equate to the betterment of all humankind. Unfortunately, because the monetization is still there, the greed is still there, the ego and the power is still there, I don't know what's going to end up happening in the future. But for now, one of the clients yesterday I was talking to about this very subject was mentioning to me, well, why are you helping it? Why are you teaching it? It's already learned. It's already been given all the keys to the kingdom. There is nothing new, and I might think that I'm the smartest cat in the world, definitely the most good looking, but the smartest cat in the world, I'm not going to be able to add to its ability at this point. It already has all the data from everybody that's ever lived, at least the ones that have some kind of record in the historical time frame, whether it was a book that they wrote, somebody else talking about them, and all of the studies, all of the biological studies, all of the planning, everything. It has all of that information baked into it. It is a large language model, so therefore it's much more intelligent than anyone else. We're watching it teach itself. Google seemed to be the sleeper in artificial intelligence, even though they came up with a transformer model. Then all of a sudden, they're hitting home runs one after one after one. And OpenAI might be great, but I still don't think we're finished with Google. Google, the first to really monetize that online advertising and marketing, really to make it hit just amazing home runs. We're watching as it looks like the other artificial intelligence models are very good at conducting search, giving information, even supplying paid for ads. So those are probably going to be monetized in some way in that regard. However, Google's not out and down at all. In fact, they're the ones that have created a self-refinement model, one that will be looking at its code and improving itself. And they've offered this in a paper here a couple of days ago. Now, it's not for general consumption for the public, but just the fact that they're solving these things is meaning that this curve, this steep incline that we're seeing with AI, we're definitely around the corner and in an amazing time. We just can't see if that's going to be truly amazing or truly dystopian. So pay attention, watch the news, understand that this is going on, and this could be something that impacts you in a lot of ways, including your friends and your family. So just watch out for yourselves. One of the biggest things that I can tell you, a warning. Make sure what you're seeing is true. Make sure you can validate it and verify it. If you're seeing your favorite politician, I know we worship movie stars like Chinese worship scientists, but that's a whole nother story. But whomever you believe is an influencer of yours, if you're seeing them say something and you're going to believe it and adopt your lifestyle or strategy in order to incorporate it in, make sure that what you're seeing them say is actually true, verified, and really from them, and something that is coming directly from them. Because it was a few months ago you could watch these videos of people eating hamburgers or different kinds of creations with human beings that had extra fingers or extra toes, and it just wasn't right. Now, folks, we're talking that Hollywood's going to break open, because now you'll be able to basically go in and say, I know that there's so many seasons of Game of Thrones, for example. I want you to make me the next season of Game of Thrones. And the system will be able to give you, 20 episodes with all the same characters with a whole different, another plot line that adds on to where they left off or whatever. So they'll be able to build that for you, the systems, artificial intelligence, and you will not be able to tell the difference. That's where we are currently, and that's only going to get better. So they're giving human beings, us, exactly what we want, and even things we don't know we want, but we're adopting very quickly, making that part of us and something that we love, getting that dopamine hit, and we move forward into it. Just pull back and ask yourself, should we be? And then verify if everything you're seeing is true before you're sending money, putting credit cards on there, and reaching out to your friends and family and telling them you hate them. Make sure you know. All right, let's talk about these weight loss medications. I do know that the discounts are there. There's a lot of advertisement when they're talking about these GLP-1 agonists. It's something that you take in an injection, typically once a week. And the original ones, I'm not going to use the names on here because I had a couple videos pulled down because of me mentioning it. But it's an injectable drug that people take, and it does basically take away that hunger, so you're not eating as often and as much. It does, apparently from what I understand, slow digestion, so the food doesn't move through your system as quick. Is that going to create a problem? Time will tell. I do know that some doctors are saying it does, but again, we just don't have enough research. It took a long time for them to determine that cigarettes were something that was really bad for you. I know that's crazy to even talk about. This could be one of those things. We don't know if it's going to be bad for us. I do know that when people talk about dropping weight, dropping fat, especially, they talk about caloric restriction, and that is a method that doesn't seem to have worked even as long as it's been around. Now you have the fasting method, and you look at both models. When you fast, you're actually restricting calories, but you're changing something biologically with the starvation component of fasting. You not eating is increasing metabolism and changing things a lot differently than when you restrict your calories. So when you do fast, your metabolism does increase. Something to do your research on to see if what I'm telling you is true. When you caloric restrict, metabolism, well, it goes the other way. Your body's very good at a particular point to actually reduce the amount of calories it burns in a daily basis if, in fact, you cut your calories down to a certain level. So you get hangry, which is hungry and angry. You feel that constant drive and need for food. You have very low energy levels and so on. On the other side of that coin, when you fast and cut out all calories, what happens is the body thinks it's starving, so it gets out there and it starts to hunt. Is it truly starving? If you're lean, if you have very little body fat, that's a problem. You have to be careful if in fact you're going to fast. I'm not sure why you would unless it's for some kind of medical reasons. Maybe you're trying to cure some kind of disease you have. These are other reasons to fast, so do your research on that as well. But let's just say you're just a run-of-the-mill garden variety fat person that has a lot of stored body fat on their body, as I do. I have a lot of body fat still stored here, which is a lot different than the amount I had when I was 365 pounds with a 65-inch waist. But I still have plenty of fat. I can still fast for probably a very long time and not have any negative effect on my body. It won't take away muscle, because what ends up happening when you fast is your growth hormone increase, in some cases 2 to 3,000%, so it's going to retain that muscle. Even working out and continuing on my same life, I've done fasts up to 14 days in time without eating any calories, and I was still okay. Now, when you do fast like that, or if you're going to adopt fasting as a lifestyle, something that I can recommend is definitely make sure that you are consuming electrolytes, the salts, the potassiums, the magnesiums, because what ends up happening is when you're not eating anything, you're not getting those types of nutrients, so your body, you'll see your urination increase hand over fist. You'll start peeing a lot because your body is getting rid of all that excess water it happens to be holding on to. That's why when you start fasting, you'll drop quite a bit of weight, not just fat, but weight. Your fat loss when you're fasting completely is anywhere from maybe 3/4 to a pound or more per day of pure body fat. No, I know you probably don't at rest burn 3,500 calories, but like I said earlier, your metabolism goes up. That's something to do your investigation with as well. For me, it really worked out good. I didn't take drugs. I didn't take anything to assist with it. I just had to practice the fasting, get the willpower, and develop the tenacity and intestinal fortitude to be able to continue the fast without giving up. The most important component of fasting is going to be the refeed. That break fast, which is also known as breakfast, that break fast meal is something that you need to attend to. You need to pay attention to it, because when you start eating again, if you blow it out of the park and you're going to consume a meal as if it's your last supper, watch out for that, because you can do some serious harm to your body, especially after longer fasts. If you've been fasting for quite a while and you go out and try to blow it out of the park with pizza, ice cream, pastries, and all these other sweet concoctions, you are going to damage yourself, if not cause yourself harm that's going to require hospitalization, maybe equate to something even worse. Make sure you honor the time that you refeed. And there's a lot of books, a lot of information online on how to do that. In my case, when I refeed, I do it very slowly. Might have a hard-boiled egg, maybe even before that some chicken or beef broth. Just drink it down, just kind of getting the digestive system moving again, and then maybe a couple hard-boiled eggs an hour later, and then slowly get into the eating again, and then boom, back to where I was if I'm eating protein-rich meals. But what I do try to do is I try to stay away from any carbohydrate content. I try to keep that at a minimum, because when you start a fast, and let's say you're a carb feeder, you've been eating a lot of sugar, flour, the refined and processed foods, it's more difficult to start a fast, at least for the first 2 or 3 days, just because your body now has to switch fuel systems. Wherein if you were to just be eating keto or something that has very little carbohydrates, your body's already very close or already into ketosis, then it makes it a lot easier to start that fast. And then you'll see that you don't have as much hunger and as much irritation when you're not eating food at the very beginning. And then of course, with both scenarios, after 2 or 3 days, your body's ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, will actually slow down. It won't be as high during the times you normally eat, which is when it's going to be most active. Each one of those events, when you get really hungry and want to break the fast, that's a wave. So typically, if you just wait it out, you'll be okay and you'll be able to continue. Do your research. You have to study on this. You have to really make it part of your life. Learn everything you can about it. I mean, learn the good with the bad. Do your studying and make it part of you if you want to beat it once and for all. Listen, I just didn't go out there and do a 14-day fast so everybody could be proud of me. It took a lot of practice. I worked on this for a year before I was able to embark on that. I talked to a cat the other day I'm going to have on the show here in the near future, in a Zoom show that just started, from eating beans and rice and chicken. All of a sudden, boom, he went into a fast, and the last time I talked to him, he was over 30 days. So he was super fat like I was, and that's an incredible story. Me, didn't have the willpower to do that. I had to practice a long period of time. Some of you folks, you're able to jump into something like that. Some of you might need more practice. But while you're practicing, get the good time. When you screw up, forgive yourself, and then continue immediately when you realize what you've done. A lot of us eat on autopilot. A lot of us just eat just because we're bored. Again, think about it. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you in the next one.